Hello everyone, today I'm going to talk about Introduction to PHP Web Services. Actually, I have divided this series into two different formats. First one is these lecture slides, and then second one is practical that I will put like a lab for this. So if you're interested in directly in the lab, you might switch to that one. You can go there. I will put the link for that lab in the description. And if you're interested to listen to the concepts, you might follow these concepts that I'm going to talk about. All right. So first of all, outlines. We are going to talk about the web services. How do we use a web service? We will also quickly take a look at traditional software model. We'll also take a look at machine to machine, M2M, or which is used for business to business settings, and then human to machine communication like B2C, business to customer, or C2B, customer to business. We will discuss about HTTP, SMTP, FTP a little bit. Most important thing is we need service requester and service provider in order to make sure that web services are going fine. And then we need there are two types of services. Number one is SOAP service, and there are two types of services. Number one is SOAP, Simple Object Access Protocol, and number two is the REST, Representational State Transfer. In the SOAP, we usually use RPC and XML, and then in REST we use JSON format. How do we use web service? We invoke them, compose them, describe them, publish them, and discover them. Traditional software model is like this. If you have an organization, your company, you might prefer to start your software development from scratch. You want a software, you will start it from scratch. Why would you do that? Because it's possible that you don't trust anyone else. Your competitors may sabotage you. So what is the solution? You might think that we must build everything by ourselves, even hardware or software. Of course, building hardware is not easy and in many cases impossible. So what we will do is we will build our software, what we call in-house development. But if you go for this one, it has some limitations or drawbacks. Like 47% of software delivered could not be used. Your IT team, they have developed, but they're not useful. The software is not useful. It did not meet the requirements actually. So what will you do? Let's say you have spent 1 year and that 1 year has been wasted. Another drawback is 29% of funded software never delivered. You have spent time, but it was cancelled due to cost or schedule overrun. That was not good also. 19% of software useful after extensive rework. So you have to do a lot of rework like version 1, version 2, version 3, and then it will work. So all these are drawbacks. So it's not good. We'll waste a lot of money on that. So what's the solution? Solution is on distribution. It means it is possible your IT team, you still hire some IT developers. They're good in X, but they're not good in Y. So in this case of Y, you will buy that piece of software from somewhere else, like a service. It could be a web app, it could be mobile app or desktop app, whatever. So in this case, you are going to use their web app or any app as a service. So what is a service by definition? It's a functionality that you are going to use. Okay. And there should be some service provider and service consumer. So this lecture series actually is based on service provider. It means you are a service provider. You will develop these services and someone else, a consumer, will use those services. Okay. What is a web service? Web service is, of course, is a software system designed to support interoperable machine-to-machine operations or interaction over a network. Okay, so you have one machine that wants to communicate with another machine to get data. What is the example of such kind of arrangement? For example, currency conversion. You want to show currency conversion on your website. So how would you do that? One way is you call the bank after every 10 minutes that what is the rate? What is the rate conversion between, for example, Korean won to US dollars. So how much is the rate? How much is the rate? So it's not possible to call bank every 10 minutes. It's better that you write a software and then you call API in the bank server and then you send request to that web server. Let's say you send what is the dollar rate now as compared to the Korean one. So that server will return you a value that this is the currency rate now. So you can send that request after every 10 minutes, no problem. And it can be like a seamless communication. Another example is weather forecast. Okay, uh, you might connect to a data center where the forecast data is being stored, and then you might do that, collect data from there. Or news, CNN, BBC, you can connect your server, and then is this CNN, BBC, you can connect to the CNN or BBC server, call their service using your machine, and then they will send you the news title, description, pictures, and so on. So in each and every case, you need to have a contract with these companies. Okay, and then they will allow your client to connect to them. Any other example you're thinking of? Also, it is possible that services are language independent. Okay, and they usually are. For example, you are getting data from CNN, and that service is written in Java, but your calling program is written in PHP, so no problem. These two can communicate with each other. Okay. The protocol that we use are TCP and HTTP normal protocols. So how actually does it work? So there is a resource like CNN, and then you are the consumer. You will connect that resource. There could be many consumers. So they will send request to the resource, and that resource will send them response. So provider will send them the response. And we might have these consumers in different geographical locations. They might connect to one single service provider. Let's take a quick look on a normal client server. A normal client server, like a website, it's like this. We have a server like google.com, and on the other side we have our own devices. We send request and then we get response from there. Okay, that is mostly is like human to machine communication. We have a front end client, and that interacts with different websites, and then we get the response. All right, but web service is a bit different. Of course, in web service, it is possible to have a website, um, but it's a little bit next level. For example, you want to buy a car. What are your choices? You will go to dealer one website, dealer1.com or dealer2.com or dealer3.com or so on. So you will search and you're looking for a car with 10K used car. Okay, so you will go to all these tens of dealers. So another way is no, you don't do that. You will create a web service. So this is a web service, mycars.com, and this web service will connect to these servers one by one. It will send request with 10K that I need a car with 10K, and then assume this is also a web service. They will create API, service API, Each one of these will create APIs. And from here, you will call that API. and you will call that API and they will send you the data that we have a car or we don't have car with 10K price. Okay, so this is the easier way than the of course going through one by one. So you can get all this data, you can put it in your server and you can show it to your clients. And finally, on one single location, you will see all these cars coming from these service dealers. Same thing happens with website, the news website, CNN, Fox, New York Times, same thing. Instead of going to different websites, we can collect everything, all these things into one portal. Like you might create your own website like mynews.com and you fetch all these things and put it in your system. Okay. So, by the way, the same thing is being happen. There is a website, it's called newsapi.org. They claim they have 30,000 resources. Imagine CNN is one resource. So they have 30,000 contract with different companies. And the way is you will go to their website, you will register there free of charge, and you will generate API. Using API, you will put this API in your website. This is like a key, as it says, API key. And your website will go there and fetch their news and you will put it on your website and your clients will look at this like it's happening on your website. Okay, so this is one example, another example. So what is the difference? This is a web architecture that we have seen, server and clients. But in case of web services, this part remains same. Okay, client server. But this part is different now. Servers are communicating with each other. This is what we call machine-to-machine communication happening, right? So you will have your own server, like news server, and your news server right now in the beginning is empty, no news. So you will send request to like newsapi.org, and there are many other websites like that. And that newsapi.org will send you back the news to your server. You will store it, and then your clients will read those news. Okay. So this part is human to machine, whereas this part is machine to machine communication. And this machine to machine communication actually is the web service part. Another concept is microservices architecture. Microservice is like this. You have clients on one side, and on the other side, you have databases. And these databases are actually linked with one, each one is linked with each web service. For example, video. If a client wants to fetch video, it will only connect to the video web service. If he wants the audio, he will connect to audio web service. So these are really clear separation of concern, and each web service is providing its own individual service. It's easy to maintain. If there is error in one web service, other service is not affected. Okay, now let's see how does it work. Okay, now before we go into the detail of web service, let's create a simple website. We use get and post as HTTP verbs. These get and post, they are used in a different way in web service. We will look into that later on. So I'm hopeful that you already have understanding of form. This is how it works. Okay, we have a form and it has a name, user, method post, and action insert. It means we will post this form data into insert.php, and insert.php will put this data in our MySQL DB. Okay, this is what we are going to do. So we have just a few elements here, email and display name, and another is go button. By the way, just to show it to you the difference between get and post, this post, and if we put get here, okay, in here, get view query string variables with values after this question sign. It means we're talking about the URL. In the URL, you can view the variables and values if you're using get. You can bookmark the page because values and variables are there. Repeat form requests, you can press refresh, 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 or F5, F5, and it will resend the request. In case of post, data is not visible on the URL. Okay. Instead, it goes in the body of the request. Browser warns you when you resubmit the form. It means if you refresh the page, you will get this kind of warning or alert that it's going to resubmit the form. And it happens only when you have method post. Form submission request should not be repeated. So because it's resending this thing again and again alert, so you will say you better don't refresh the page and don't bookmark it because it will give you wrong data if values or variables are being posted. Very simple web service is like this. Let's say you create a test.php. Okay, so you have a PHP tag starts here, tag ends here. Create this, type this bbc.com and put it in a $ URL variable. Then pass this URL as a variable to curl initiate. Pass this URL to this curl initiate method as a parameter, and we store it in a C handler, ch. Then we pass this ch to the another method called curl set opt. Then curl opt underscore return transfer true. So it will get the data, transfer data from BBC to test.php to your web page. And then we execute it, curl execute, pass the handler, get everything, the result, all the website images and text and everything. Close the session because when we started initiation, we started the session. So we close that. Echo results, this one. It means no, the whole thing is like this that you can see here. You might see this handsome guy also. Okay, so web service actually is part of SOA. We need service provider, we need service requester, and the message to be passed between these two guys. This is example. We have clients on one side, and on the other hand, we have web service. Web service has its own database. Client will send request using HTTP, and this will respond in JSON or XML data. Okay. The other things are also similar. I don't want to explain these things. This is also similar way, although this is the SOAP way. Okay. As I mentioned, there are two types of web services, RESTful and SOAP. Message patterns. When you use web service, there are certain patterns like request response pattern. Okay, this is synchronous communication. It means service requester will send a request first and server will respond later. Next one is solicit response. This is opposite. Service provider will send the solicit uh, kind of request and then requester will send the response. This is synchronous as well. One way, service provider will receive a request from service requester, but it is not necessary for provider to reply it back. This is asynchronous. Another is the not another one is the notification pattern. It means whenever service provider has some new data, it will just notify it. Requester does not need to respond to it. So we have two types of web services, REST and SOAP. REST is basically usually used for social media, web chat, mobile apps. SOAP is used for finance, telecommunication, and payment gateways. But it's not limited to these things. We might have more domains. Because data is machine readable and also a bit for human readable, so we use data format like XML and JSON. These two are the most important one. Okay. Although we use DTD, XSD, and WSDL for data description. If we want to create web service, first of all, we need to know how a PHP works. How the P If we want to create a web service, first of all, we need to know that how to create a simple PHP web service using MySQL. I assume that you have installed XAMPP that I'm going to use, or MAMP. I'm going to use XAMPP actually for Windows, or MAMP for Mac. So these are the steps. Step 1, step 2, 3, and 4. So these are the steps 1, 2, 3, 4. First of all, you need to install that. Then you will click on these buttons. First of all, it will show start. So you will click on start. It will turn to green, Apache and MySQL. Once they are green, they will come to become stop. So if you want to stop them, you can install them. So once you have installed XAMPP, you will run that. I will show you in the lab session. So you will click on the start and you will click create. So once you have installed XAMPP, you will see this kind of control panel. I will show you in the lab session. You will click on these buttons and you will start that Apache and MySQL. It will turn to green and it means it's working. Then you will go to your browser, type this localhost, and you will see this kind of page, default page. And then you will click on PHP My Admin on this page and you will see the database. Okay. I will show you these things in the lab session. Creating a simple web form. This is a simple HTML web form, which will be like this: email and display name with Go. So you are like at the client side right now. And then you need to have a database to insert these two values like email and your name. How to do that? Again, I will show it to you in the video. So first we will create DB. Once you see that PHP my admin, you will type your DB name like I type dealer and press create. Once we have created that, then we will create tables, and then we'll see this thing, create table, insert users like table name. We might have 4 columns. I'm actually creating 3 columns. You will press a button. Here you will see a button like go, and then you will come to this view. You will type ID, name, email, integer, varchar. Values length is 255, 255, 255. Make sure that ID is, you will take this AI auto increment, okay, and it will become your primary key. It means whenever we will submit data like name and email, we will not need to key in our ID every time. And again, you will see a go button here, and you will press that, and then you will see this kind of view: ID, name, and email. First of all, let's create index.html. This is almost the same form that I have shown you before a minute ago. So insert, where is insert? This is insert.php. What is going on here? We have insert into users. This is our table, and name and email. Values actually supposed to come from here to here, right? But I have just hard coded it. In the beginning, I'm showing you like we are not getting values from there, for example. So we have Lorna and their email, her email address. Notice, because these are characters, characters should be in single quotes, surrounded by single quotes. Okay, but the whole thing, this before insert, here we have double quotes. So the whole thing should be in double quotes. Put it in SQL variable, and then we will query SQL variable with 3 times you will type these single quotes and true. You might use double quotes, 2 times also, that's okay. New records created successfully. If you have error, you will see this thing. So this is a query handling part. But we need to create database connection. Okay, first of all, we will have server name, which is localhost. Dealer is our database. Username, password if you have created, otherwise you will type root, ROOT for username. Password, remove this thing empty password, but keep the double quotes. And now we have this thing. Then we'll go for the connection. MySQLi, new MySQLi, server name, username, password, DB name. These are all coming from here, right, to this part. Then we say, okay, connection error, check it. If there is an error, you will see this. If not, you will automatically go to this part and your data will be inserted. Now, we assume that we have this data in our database table. We want to search by email address. So for that one, let's create a file, search client.php, and save it in the XAMPP folder, htdocs folder. And this is our form. We will type email and then we'll search whether the name exists or not, or what is the name under this email address. So let's see the query first. Select ID and name. We want to select these two things from users table, and where email is this email, notice, because this is a combination of characters from here to here. So we need to put $, and because this is PHP variable, and also single quote because it contains characters. Now, once we have it, then we query and we see, okay, num row greater than result. At least we have more than 0, 1 or more. Then we say, okay, fetch associate, put it in the row. We are fetching that one record, one row ID and row name. And then we will put them into PHP variables, and then we display them, these two things in here. Okay, ID and display name and also email. This email is coming from the previous page. Okay. So we need all the way the connection that we had before. We can copy paste it. Okay. Make sure to change these things accordingly, the username and password. And then notice this is one more thing, one line, request email. So this request email without $, this is actually coming from here. Okay, we request from the browser that gave me the email address that someone has sent before, put it in the, now this time we put PHP variable. Okay, store this thing into this, and from here we are going there. And if we find the result, we will show it. If we don't find the result, we will not see that. Okay, conclusion. Difference between, we have seen the website and web service. Web service is more between about the machine-to-machine communication. Okay, web service has its own architecture. It belongs to SOA. We have seen microservices. We have also seen messages. By the way, if you're interested to mess up with the Open Weather API to read the data about weather, this is the website, and they will give you API. You need to register there and get the API keys for usage. All right, this is done with the lecture, and then we will see the lab. I will put the lab URL here in the description. Please subscribe our channel. Have a good day.